So, general needs for shooting at home, I just described some of them. I love scanners. If you work small, scanners can be a great way to go, but of course you gotta work pretty small in order to use a scanner. If you do small drawings or small images or even small sculptures, up to 12 by 19, you can usually find a friend who has something in the 12 by 19 size, but even on a cheap 3-in-1 printer, that scanner can be invaluable in giving you really nice, crisp, good images that in some cases are as good or better than what you would be shooting. Of course, that's not helpful at all if you do large scale anything, but scanners can be really great for small things. Image cleanup is huge. Photoshop, you can spend your whole life, as I'm sure many Photoshop people know, you can spend your whole life playing around with image management because it's actually a lot of fun. And there are a million different things you can do to tweak it. I usually go into levels and drag the levels so that basically I'm getting the best contrast that I can out of that particular image. There are some kind of unwritten rules, actually some places will even say the image can't be changed more than X percentage. Some of you may have run into that before. But I actually think that's a great rule for your image management in Photoshop. You don't want to start again with an image that's so poor you have to change the contrast 30%. Because the reality is if you're doing that, you're going to have a lot of noise, probably in pixelation in the original image anyway. And the idea is that when you're, in general, I would say that your images are going to look 30% less cute projected as they do on your computer screen. That's just the straight fact. They're always somewhat disappointing when going up on a projector. So you want to consider making them also that much better. What other things do you need at home? I mean, a lot of people will use like white to bounce. You can get the clamp lights and some daylight bulbs and bounce off of 2 pieces of foam port, 45 angles. There are lots of tutorials online. If you Google this, you probably could find at least 2 or 3 things online that you could print out that will give you very clean step-by-step. And then you go through what I went through, and you have to really seriously evaluate whether your space is big enough to operate. Because the truth is, if you don't have enough square footage, you can't get enough distance from your object in order to get the lights appropriately measured, and then it all goes downhill from there. We talked about slide lists and descriptions. My next favorite one is press, because press is fun, and you want to try to get press on your work, and press comes in all shapes and sizes. It can be, you got mentioned as one of the artists in a show. There were 20 artists and your name got mentioned in the advertisement. That is perfectly legitimate stuff for press, especially for someone in emerging stages, and especially if it's in a good, like Time Out or whatever. It's a great way to kind of plump up some of your press. And then there are also those wonderful opportunities when people actually get written about and mentioned. And I truly believe, because it's happened to me, that no press is bad press. I truly believe that, and I wouldn't sell you a bill of goods. I got slammed one time in Art in America, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I use it, I submit it just like I would submit anything else. Yeah, she thought I was terrible. She thought I skewered women. It was really interesting for me. So that added, that no press is bad press thing, it's, obviously, if someone's calling you a straight up bad artist, that might be another story, but if they kind of disagree with content or whatever, you should feel free to include that in with press. And then in the best scenario, you get some great press on your work. So what do? You get your press, you cut it out, you scan it, you digitize it immediately, and then back it up. Because the truth is, stuff wanders, people move, stuff gets chewed by cats, things yellow, and then it's a pain in the neck. So you really want to, every time there's press that takes place, you want to usher it through that process of archiving right away. And then there are opportunities where you can print it out and add it into a submission. So for instance, let's say there's a gallery that wants you to submit your work. Well, this is a wonderful opportunity. If they don't say, don't do X, Y, Z, or please only submit, you could submit your CV, your artist statement, some printouts, some sample images, a CD, and a few choice pieces of press to tell them that you have some kind of reputation. So press is actually a very important support material, and you should have a separate folder at all times in your computer and in your hard copies for any press that takes place. And I think it's nice to, Empty folders are reminders, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but empty folders are reminders of places where we need to do more work. So if you don't have press, don't be intimidated by not having press. Go out and get press, and write about other people, and start activating yourself in ways that will help you get what you need in that category. And I mentioned image printouts. Image printouts are great because sometimes people really don't want to hop in a CD, or they may use an image printout just to say, I'm not interested, or I'm interested, let's pop the CD in. Because as you all know, as I mentioned before, putting a CD in is actually kind of a pain in the neck. So the printouts can really help people shortcut in a good way to know what they're interested in looking at. So organization, I mean, you know, in some ways I sometimes wonder if the world is separated into Virgos and non-Virgos. You know, like some of us are natural organizers, and this stuff comes instinct, you know, it just comes by instinct. You know, you're creating lists in your head. Some people don't even have to write stuff down. And then for others of us, there are areas of our life that are tremendously well organized, and then areas of total chaos. My grandmother used to say about me that I was 98% perfection and 2% nuclear holocaust. And actually, I think for artists, this is really, we all have that 2% nightmare window. And of course, that's the window you want to try to close. So what are the ways you can do that? One of the silly, I mean, in my students, I have them make a presentation on all their organizational methodology they develop over the course of the semester, and one of my completely adorable students was like, well, I color code everything. I have a different colored notebook and folder for every class, every project, I was like, did we make this many? He said, absolutely. He brought in his like little push card, purple, pink, light pink, purple, green, blue, and that's how he organized. And he had a corresponding notebook for every single thing. You want to work as close to, you want to work as far out as possible. And the other rule is you want to try not to hand things in on the deadline. Because the truth is, the deadline is a deadline. And a lot of organizations, even if they want to help you, can't. Because they have internal rules that say, sorry, that's the deadline. Whereas if you submit something a week beforehand and you've made a mistake, it gives you the opportunity to recover from that mistake. It also, in this totally crazy USPS world, where Chicago has some of the worst mail in the country, New York is very lucky in having really high quality mail, but you can't really guarantee when stuff is going to show up. So you really want to give yourself a nice cushion on the front and back ends of things.